I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, July the 18th, where supposedly we've got some technical support that should support the futures market this week. You know, it seems like we normally come into the week with the board quite a bit lower, and then something happening in the cash market that causes the board to kind of correct itself or get back closer to steady there later in the week. But now, according to some of the technical analysts, the squiggly lines are kind of in favor of the cattle market, and we may be able to see some support out of there. Monday was fairly supportive. You know, started out a little lower there early, but then was able to kind of shrug that off and get back on the positive side for the most part. Your board, live cattle futures, your spot August was about the only thing that was any lower, and it was down 85, just under 117 there, and that's about a $2.50 basis to what the weighted average for last week's fat cattle trade was. But all your other out front live cattle contracts were marginally higher. Feeder cattle were also slightly higher. When you look at that weighted average on last week's fat cattle trade on 99,000 head for a post-holiday trade in your 5-area feeding region, that compares to 84,300 the week before and 82,800 the same week a year ago. But your live sales on the weighted average, live steers 119.51, that's up $1.93 compared to the previous week, and dress sales 190.06. That's up $1.88 compared to the previous week on the weighted average. Your box beef cutout values on Monday were fairly quiet. Now your choice was a little lower and selects a little lighter, but not sharply like we've been seeing almost every single trading session for the past 3 or 4 weeks. But still, we could be looking at getting close to the kind of seasonal bottom for these box beef cutout values. It usually happens somewhere in here and in later part of July or early August there, when the hottest part and the hamburger and hot dog demand is really at its peak, and then it starts to kind of bottom out and come back around before fall. But your choice carcass cutouts at 209.05 and selects at 195.81 on the close on Monday, with just a $13.24 spread on the two. But you look at your feeder cattle markets on Monday late, your real-time index on Beef Market Central was up 21 cents from the close of last week at 149.73, real close to 150, and I know we've seen some monster prices around, but basically anybody's going to be pretty well happy with a $1.50 for their 800-pound steers. So that's awful impressive market this late in the season, and none of us thought it would be that good. Still pretty salty around, and you wonder how we're getting those prices like that. It's mostly your farmer feeders that are driving the market on these big feeding cattle, and they're doing it, you know, from I-70 and north, and they're wanting those better top quality cattle, and they're pushing the market on everything because they're taking those cattle out away and putting them in their hands and taking them out of the big corporate feeders' hands. You look at a market that posted some big prices there, not on Beef Market Central, but wish they were. Callaway Livestock Center in Kingdom City, Missouri, which is just east of Columbia, Missouri, right on I-70 there. And it does actually sit south of I-70, so technically we wouldn't think it's a farmer feeder market, but you could throw a rock across the 4 lanes there. And but Callaway on Monday has big sales. 4 loads of steers there, all black and the right kind there at Kingdom City, weighed 832 at 161. And that's from farmer feeder demand going up into Iowa on those cattle, and there's some big feedlots that bump in there too, mostly out of Nebraska and places, but they couldn't handle what the farmer feeders were bringing, and that's what's really pushing the weighted averages on your real-time index, your CME feeder cattle index on these big feeding cattle. You look at some more markets that are totally dominated by the corporate feeders in the southern plains and out of that farmer feeder demand, which they don't post prices anything like that, but still got a good market. Oklahoma City had 5,900 head, feeders $4 to $8 higher. We're expecting those feeder cattle to be higher. Calves were not well tested, but did say they had a few from $4 to $10 higher on calf weights. Joplin Regional Stockyards at 3,300 on Monday there. Most of their cattle were $4 to $7 higher, with the exception of heifer calves, which were mostly steady. Look at a market further east, but also getting to enjoy some farmer feeder demand on order there. You look at Bluegrass Stockyards East in Mount Sterling, Kentucky, early in the morning at 8:20 in the morning to get out of that heat. That load of 856-pound steers you see there on Beef Market Central at $153.75. That's your feeder flash for Tuesday.